Mansa Musa of Mali. When Ghana began to crumble, the kingdom of Mali took over the gold and salt trade. Like Ghana, Mali lay between the gold mines of the south and the salt mines of the north. Like Ghana, Mali made money on the gold and salt that moved along its roads. But unlike Ghana, Mali was an Islamic kingdom. Islam spread to the kingdoms of West Africa from the Muslim traders who brought salt down from the north, and although the kings of Ghana had refused to become Muslims, many other West Africans accepted the Islamic faith. The kings of Mali built schools so that their people could learn to read the Quran. They built universities so that students could discuss the important ideas of their religion, along with ideas in mathematics, history, philosophy, and science. As Mali grew, it became famous for its schools, universities, and libraries. The people of Mali had great respect for their kings. An Islamic adventurer named Ibn Battuta traveled to Mali in the Middle Ages. He described the attitude of the king's subjects like this: "They submit to their king and grovel in front of him. Anyone who is summoned to see the king takes off his good clothes, puts on rags and a dirty old hat, rolls his trousers up to his knees to show his humility, and then goes in and puts his elbows on the ground. Whenever the king speaks, they all take off their turbans and hats and put them on the ground to show their respect. And if anyone asks the king a question, if the king answers him, he scoops up dust from the ground and throws it all over himself the whole time the king is speaking, just to show how unworthy he is of any answer." All Mali kings were treated with this kind of reverence, but the most famous of all Mali kings was respected, not just by his own people, but by the rest of the world. His name was Mansa Musa. When Mansa Musa came to the throne of Mali, he gathered the largest army in all of West Africa. He commanded over 100,000 archers, cavalrymen, and foot soldiers. He conquered neighboring kingdoms and expanded the kingdom of Mali until, as he boasted, a traveler would need a year to travel from one end of Mali to the other. Mansa Musa was famous in West Africa, but he attracted the attention of the world when he decided to make a pilgrimage, or Hajj, to Mecca, the holy city of the Muslim faith. Every good Muslim was supposed to visit Mecca at least once during his life. But the journey all the way from West Africa to Mecca and back again would take over a year, and for all that time, Mansa Musa would have to leave his country in the hands of his advisors. But he was determined to show his devotion to Allah by making the pilgrimage, and he was equally determined to show the rest of the world that he, Mansa Musa, was one of the greatest monarchs of the Middle Ages. He decided to take his wife with him, and not just his wife, but his children, sisters, brothers, cousins, nieces, and uncles, and also his cooks, servants, bodyguards, palace advisors, soldiers, and holy men. One medieval writer claims that 60,000 people traveled to Mecca with Mansa Musa. As the caravan wound its way towards Mecca, Mansa Musa himself rode in the center of the column. 500 slaves walked in front of him, wearing robes of silk and carrying walking sticks of pure heavy gold. 100 camels followed behind him, hauling 3,000 pounds of gold. Whenever Mansa Musa halted the caravan for Friday prayers, he paid to have a mosque built on the place where he stopped. When he passed through Egypt, he gave away so much gold that the price of gold plummeted. There was so much gold in Egypt that it wasn't worth as much anymore. 12 years later, the price of gold in Egypt was still low because Mansa Musa had given so much gold away to the Egyptians as he traveled through. When he arrived in Mecca, Mansa Musa took off his royal robes and his gold. Like every Muslim pilgrim, he washed himself, put on a white robe, and prayed in the holy city. He gave away alms, gifts of money, to other pilgrims and to the poor. And after he had completed his worship, he turned his caravan around and started home. But he had given away so much of his gold that he had to borrow money to get back to Mali. Mansa Musa's journey to Mecca made him famous. After his pilgrimage, medieval maps began to show the kingdom of Mali below the Sahara Desert. One of these maps shows Mansa Musa himself sitting on the throne in the middle of his kingdom, holding a golden nugget in his hand. For the first time, maps also showed roads leading from the northern African coast down into West Africa. Because of Mansa Musa, Europeans now knew all about the West African country of Mali. The Songhai Empire. The West African Empire of Ghana grew rich and powerful, but then began to fade away. Then Mali became the richest and most powerful West African empire, but Mali too began to shrink after the death of the great Mansa Musa, and soon it too was replaced by a new empire, the Songhai. Ghana was known for salt and gold, and Mali was known for its great Islamic kings. But Songhai became known for its size. It grew and grew until it covered most of the land that had belonged to both Ghana and Mali. Its cities were filled with great mosques, strong walled palaces and mansions, famous universities, and busy marketplaces where salt, iron, ivory, gold dust, and food were traded. Songhai's best-known city, Timbuktu, had 80,000 inhabitants and almost 200 schools. The medieval traveler Leo Africanus explored the land of the Songhai and wrote about his adventures. Leo was a Muslim, born in the Spanish kingdom of Granada when it was under Muslim rule. When Leo was 7, Ferdinand and Isabella conquered Granada and added it to their Christian kingdom. Most of Grenada's Muslims left the country. Leo's parents took him to North Africa to live. When he grew up, Leo decided to travel from North Africa down through the Sahara Desert into the kingdom of the Songhai. The trip through the desert was a harsh one, Leo wrote. Many who travel through this desert die because they cannot find water. Their carcasses lie around on the sand, scorched by the sun's heat. Others become so thirsty that they kill their camels and squeeze water out of the camel intestines and drink it. Sometimes this keeps them alive until they can find a pool or well of water. Leo Africanus made it through the Sahara Desert without having to drink water from a camel's insides. Once he arrived in the Songhai Empire, he traveled from city to city, finally arriving at Timbuktu. Here is how he described this great West African city in his book, History and Description of Africa and the Notable Things Contained Therein. The houses are made out of clay with thatched roof, but the temple and the king's palace at the center of the city are built of stone. The city is filled with wells of sweet water, and there is much grain and many animals, so the inhabitants eat milk and butter. There is not much fruit, but there are melons, cucumbers, bread, meat, excellent pumpkins, and a huge quantity of rice. But there is not much salt, because it has been carried here from a mine 500 miles away. All of the women wear veils over their faces, except for the slave women. Many of the men are very rich, and the king himself has tremendous amounts of gold. I saw one gold bar belonging to the king that weighed almost 1,000 pounds. The king often leads his armies into war, but only against his enemies and those who refuse to pay him tribute. In battle, he and his soldiers ride on horses that they buy from the Arabs. Their servants ride on camels. Both the horsemen and the foot soldiers shoot poisoned arrows at their enemies. But the king also honors learning and books greatly. Timbuktu is full of doctors, priests, judges, and scholars, and the king pays salaries to learned men so that they can study and teach. Books are the most valuable possession of all. They sell for more money than any other kind of goods. The people are gentle and cheerful. Every night there is singing and dancing in the streets. The people stroll continuously through the city at night, playing musical instruments. When Leo Africanus published his book in 1526, more Europeans found out about the kingdoms of West Africa. The continent was not quite so dark anymore. Europeans were startled to find out that great cities and empires existed south of the Sahara. Eventually, the Songhai Empire was destroyed by invaders who wanted to seize the salt and gold mines of the Songhai for their own. The Sultan of Morocco in northern Africa sent an army of 3,000 men across the desert. These Moroccan soldiers had cannon and guns, and the Songhai warriors had only spears and bows. They couldn't resist the stronger weapons of the Moroccans. The Moroccan army seized the salt mines in the north of the empire, but the Songhai refused to tell them where the gold mines lay. Finally, after more than 10 years of fighting, the Sultan of Morocco gave up on trying to find the gold mines. But the war had already torn the Songhai kingdom apart. The largest West African empire of the Middle Ages had come to an end.